ended up going to Nashville Glazier Clinic. This is when I think Glazier Clinics were good. We drove up to Nashville, man. Noel Mazzone, back when he was trying to get the end zone system going. Heard the man speak for like at least 6 hours, went to a bar, sat next to him. Man, Noel drew so many things up on napkins and talked. And I had been in Gwinnett County and DeKalb County, which was extreme athletes. So when I talk about extreme athletes, I'm talking about guys like, I played high school football against Patrick Pass, guys like Craig Lumpkin, coached against guys. I coached against Alvin Kamara. Like, I had to try to game plan how to stop him on offense and defense. I had seen what speed and athletes could do. And so after we kind of heard Noel's vision of combining air raid with run game and what we experienced, I think we locked ourselves in that hotel room that night. And we might have drunk so much coffee because I think we had to pull over and sleep in the car before we came back to Atlanta. But we kind of put together this mastermind of an offense. And so that was kind of my melting pot.
Welcome to the Quarterback Code Podcast, where we interview offensive coordinators, QB coaches, quarterbacks, and anyone who could add value as we decode the most difficult position in all of sports. Today's guest is Terrance Banks, a high school coach from Atlanta with a deep commitment to developing quarterbacks and building winning programs. A former player who earned degrees in both mathematics and computer science, he had the opportunity to pursue a lucrative career in technology, but instead, he chose to dedicate his life to his passion, football. Introduced to the air raid offense early in his career, Coach Banks has spent the last 20 years refining his own version of the power spread, a system designed to simplify the game for his quarterbacks while keeping defenses on their heels. From teaching quarterbacks how to keep their eyes downfield, whether they're in the pocket or being pushed out of it, to running his core concepts with consistent progressions, his philosophy is all about efficiency, execution, and attacking defenses when the opportunity presents itself. As you just heard, a chance encounter with Noel Mazzone at a Glazier Clinic over a decade ago helped shape his offensive approach, and he's been innovating ever since. But beyond the X's and O's, Coach Banks is a transformational leader, coaching not just for wins on the field, but for the life lessons that adversity teaches, shaping young athletes into better men. Today, we're diving into QB development, offensive strategy, and the mindset it takes to succeed. So let's get into it right here on the Quarterback Code. Today's guest is Coach Terrance Banks, who I've followed on YouTube for some time regarding his power spread and air raid videos. Coach Banks is a newly appointed head coach at Central Gwinnett High School in Georgia. He previously led Greene County High School to an impressive record of 10-2 and 8-3 in the last two seasons. And his coaching career also includes head coaching positions at Tri-Cities High School and Newton High School. Coach Banks is very, very, very active on Twitter. Definitely follow him on there. He has 9 highly rated CoachTube presentations. He's a blog contributor at High Speed Spread Football, and he even has a book on Amazon, 101 Plays in the Power Spread Offense. I can go on, but let me welcome Coach into the show so he can get a word in. How you doing today, Coach?
Man, I'm doing good. That sounds like I've done a lot of good stuff. So that I don't think of myself in that manner, but that's good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, and like I mentioned in the opening, I really have been watching you since I kind of got back into football and back into coaching. And you were one of the first people that I kind of consumed on YouTube and trying to learn how to run the spread. I came up in a wing T world in the 90s. So I needed to teach myself some spread, and you were one of the first influences. How did you kind of get into the YouTube side of the house? I'm curious where that came from.
Man, I don't know if I really remember how I stumbled upon YouTube. I've always been one that likes to share information. And so I just think that, early on stages, it was like, kind of, do some YouTube stuff. I started finding videos, and I think we all have imposter syndrome, which means like, what I'm sharing isn't worth everybody kind of looking at. So I kind of started to do bit by bit, and few videos took off. And, from there, it's kind of like, well, let me kind of start adding more. And it's kind of been that way ever since. So that's, kind of how I stumbled upon it. I think it was, kind of almost by mistake in a sense. I was doing the videos primarily for myself or to keep information. And then when I started to kind of get into Coach Tube, I started to add the videos to upload for Coach Tube. But then I'm like, hey, I might as well share some of this with everybody. And it kind of exploded from there probably about 6 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I kind of caught wind of you. And I think that's how a lot of us, a lot of us that really love the game and want to do the right things for the kids, you start doing some research and start Googling or YouTubing whatever concepts or plays or philosophies that you're looking to instill as a coach. And I think a lot of folks on this channel, this is a air raid specific channel for like coaches that are a little younger in their careers, maybe JV, high school, and below down to like middle school. And we even have some 10U teams running air raid nowadays, Coach. So I think what you can kind of offer these folks in terms of your experience as at coaching at a higher level, being able to implement the spread, and it doesn't have to be just air raid, though I know you run air raid concepts, and how you work with your quarterbacks in these spread offenses. I think it's going to be real valuable. So again, just thanks for coming on and sharing some knowledge with everybody. Cool. So before we get into the football side, we like to kind of rewind and make sure everyone gets to know you. Our audience really loves to get to know how coaches kind of got to where they are, right? Because like I said, a lot of these coaches are early in their careers. They're thinking about, hey, what's my next step to get to high school or get to JV or get to varsity level. So if you don't mind, I'd love to take it back to kind of your early life, man. Did you grow up in Georgia?
I did, man. So I grew up in Metro Atlanta, in a small town called Lithonia, which is probably about 25 minutes from downtown Atlanta. And just grew up here, went to high school here. Back when I went to high school, so I didn't go to the high school in my community back then, not to go too far off course, but kind of back then, my school system that I grew up in was still kind of having some of the residual effects of like Brown versus Board of Education.
Sure.
So I caught the school bus with probably about half of the school, man, and we went to school on the northern end of our county. And my high school was a football powerhouse at the time. But I caught a bus, didn't go to my local high school, and went to the Fluent School up at enough end of the county. But we had a great high school coach who didn't care that we didn't live in the neighborhood. He did. He had been there for a while. His son played for me, played for us, played on the same team as us. His son is a good friend of mine, high school teammate. He's currently a head coach, athletic director out in Texas at Lamar High School, but played there. Ended up getting the chance to go to Morehouse College. Tried that for a year as far as the football part, walking on, and then we went and just became a regular student. I had too much fun my freshman year of high school, but I knew I loved the game. So kind of fast forward when I get ready to graduate with my second bachelor's degree, my younger brother, who was 8 years younger, he was playing high school football, and his coach needed more coaches. And so instead of Georgia, the main way to become a coach is to be a teacher. So now I'm an educator. So that's the number one way. If you're not an educator, you have to go through what we call lay coaching certification, which you can do. There are several people that coach who are not teachers. So the majority of your big schools are going to have teachers as coaches because it's the easiest thing to do. So I did that for a year. And oddly enough, my elementary school PE teacher said, you should do what you love for the rest of your life and you'll find a way to make money. So only because he told me that because I enjoy coaching football. Here I am finishing my second bachelor's degree, which is in computer science. My first one is in mathematics. And so I'm thinking, man, I would love to be a football coach and a teacher, but computer scientists make an extreme boatload of money. So I probably should go do that. I didn't. I went and ended up becoming a math teacher and coaching some more high school football, teaching math and being a head track coach. And 20 years later, almost, here I am today. So that was kind of my career path that got me to where I am now.
No, that's awesome, man. And yeah, I'm out in the Bay Area in California. So definitely know a lot of computer science folks out here, and I work in technology. And yes, there's a lot of people that probably make really good money doing following the path of that career. But I can tell you firsthand, I know a lot of football coaches too, and they definitely seem to be more at peace and more happy on a day-to-day basis than these people that are grinding it out. I mean, I'm on the tech side, but I'm more on the customer side. I'm not smart enough. My math, I got an English lit degree for a reason. I couldn't go that way. But no, that's awesome, man, that you have it, you have the knowledge, your brain works like that, and you still chose to do what, where your passion lies, and to work with the kids and kind of pass on that knowledge, man. That's a pretty cool story. And I love the first part, what you said about just kind of a snapshot, right, of, Atlanta, America in the 80s and 90s. It was a different time, right? And things were a lot different. Some things have unfortunately stayed the same, but it's important. Like I said, there's a lot of younger coaches in their career, which means they're probably, in their late 20s or early 30s listening to this. And, it's, if you haven't researched it, that's when Atlanta really started to turn that corner, right? They got the huge airport there, and people started flocking in, and there was a lot.
Yeah, man. It's such a different time growing up as a child in the late 80s and 90s, and then here come the 96 Olympics.
Exactly.
And it kind of opened up Atlanta to the world. So it's been different here in Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, ever since the Olympics. Even to like where I'm at now, where I'm head coach at just recently, Central Gwinnett. Back kind of when I was growing up, when they kind of didn't really have a lot of high schools, it was still country area per se, and the explosion, like we're the biggest county in Metro Atlanta, and all of those things that were kind of, my home county is next door where I was raised at, but just after the Olympics, kind of the explosion of Atlanta as a whole, as a major area, here we are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Awesome. So when did you start playing ball? Was it as a kid, then like youth, or was it more toward
Yeah. So I played when I was a young kid. I played some football. Really wasn't. I dabbled in playing football. Football could be hit or miss. The one sport that I had to have growing up as a young child, was baseball.
Oh yeah.
Like I lived for baseball. Okay. Knowing what I know now, I probably should have just kept baseball, right? But lived for baseball. As I got back into high school, it was track. And then kind of my sophomore through senior year. So here's what was different when I was growing up. We didn't have middle schools at the time in my county. They had just started the middle school movement. So I went to elementary school, kindergarten through 7th grade. Oh, wow. And I went to high school 8th through 12th grade.
That's different.
Right. So it wasn't until that 10th grade year where I kind of got back into the football side of it. And my high school football team, my last 3 years, we were really good. Lost the state championship my junior year. Lost in the first round, second round my sophomore year, and then as a senior, we lost in the first round. Yeah, we were really, really good up until the year I graduated. My high school, which opened up in like 1960 something, never had a losing football season.
Wow, that's awesome.
Now the year after I graduated, that all kind of changed.
Right. And by the way, man, 90s baseball, and I'm a Giants fan, always have been, but Ron Gant and David Justice and all those pitchers, obviously, like I still watch that the whole pitching staff y'all had back then. Dude, it was fun to watch, even as a Giants fan on the West Coast.
Well, you want to know what's ironic? So Ryan Gant's my favorite baseball player. I think Barry Bonds is the GOAT. I love Barry Bonds to death. So my dad is a Giants fan. Willie Mays is from the same hometown as my father, outside of Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
So my dad has been a Giants fan primarily because of Willie Mays. He was probably my dad. He was a high schooler when my dad was a child. So my dad is in his late 70s. He's a Willie Mays fan, which made him a Giants fan, which we have spent several times watching the Braves play the Giants. Like every year we kind of go to the Giants game when they come here. So, but yeah, I think Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player of all time. Ron Gant is my favorite baseball player, but everything about I've watched a lot of Giants growing up. So if there was a secondary team for me, it would be the San Fran Giants. Like my dream, and I just need to do it, is to kind of fly my dad out to San Fran to catch a game in the Bay, man, one more time. So
man, bring it. Let me know when you come out here. I'll go with you guys. That's a good time. And dude, I feel the same way about the Braves growing up. I love to watch them. But isn't it cool when they did it was crazy how they did the game a couple years back in Birmingham,
Yes.
that original stadium, and Willie
Yeah.
Mays passed right around that same time. It was just like, oh my gosh, that's like,
Yeah.
universe at work or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be.
My dad speaks about Rickwood Stadium a ton, man, watching the Birmingham Black Barons
Yep.
Negro League team. So he talks about that stadium 24/7. So it was like crazy kind of seeing that, you know what I'm saying, outplay it on TV. So
Yeah, I mean, we can go off on baseball for an hour right now, but yeah, Barry Bonds deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't care what anybody says. He was the perfect storm of everything. I mean, whatever anyone has to say, he is literally for 100% the best player since we've been alive. But I agree with you. Like him and
yeah.
Willie Mays, best of all time. He was must stop, dude. Literally, I'd be walking through the city. Barry Bonds is getting up to bat. Like everyone would run into the restaurants just to see an at bat and watch him get intentionally walk with the bases loaded or something crazy like that.
Right. Yeah,
Anyway,
they can talk about the other stuff all they want to. You don't teach that hand-eye coordination.
come on.
That's not steroid up, if that's what people want to say, which that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, he was the guy with the Pirates. That whole trade decline, man, that he didn't come to Atlanta, that would have changed our lives had we got Barry Bonds back then.
You guys were good enough. You were loaded, man. I mean, I'm off the top of my head. I haven't thought about those Braves teams in a while, but I do remember Gant, Justice, and there's a ton of other dudes. Chipper. I mean, all these dudes, man. And,
yeah.
I mean, let's do a separate baseball show, Coach, some other time, because I could go off on 90s baseball with you all day.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so then you go to college, and then so you said, you said you got back into coaching. Someone from your old town or something said they wanted.
No, so my little brother is getting ready to be a senior in high school, and I watch him practices because I'm about to be a senior I guess you say senior again in college, finishing my second degree because I went to school for dual degree.
Right.
And really don't have but one class a day. And so I go and stand by and I watch workouts from my little brother, etc. And his coach says, "Hey, I need a extra coach and I can't hire a teacher. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Hell yeah." And so I end up getting lay coach certified, and I end up coaching outside linebackers on my brother's varsity team his senior year. I coached the outside linebackers.
Nice. Love it. And so you start on the defensive side. That's a common theme we hear. Like really great offensive minds kind of started on the defensive side. When did that transition kind of happen?
So started off on defense, definitely there. Did it again. So I did it. Ironically enough, my first head coaching teaching job was back at my alma mater,
Nice.
Lakeside High School. So I went back to Lakeside as a math teacher. The first year, I did defense. So we coached both sides of the ball that year, DBs and wide receivers, but primarily my focus was defense. My second year did defense as well. And then my third year, I became the offensive coordinator because staff changes. Me and the guy who was the OC had been talking a lot about things that he liked. And when he became the head coach, he asked me to switch over to offense to be the OC. And we ended up hiring a DC. And then when I left there, ironically enough, I left Lakeside. I go to Burtmore High School. I spent 1 year as a DB coach. And then I get switched over to coach offensive football, and which was my love, and kind of been. I'm a head coach now, so I coach everything, but kind of been stuck there for a while. I've been my own offensive play caller, obviously, but after I kind of made that switch back to wide receivers, I don't think I've left the offensive side of the ball per se.
Nice. And so as soon as you switch over, do you already have in your mind? Because not a lot of us that grew up in the 90s, we weren't spread. We grew up in the run heavy. So when you started calling plays, is that where were you at mentally as far as like philosophy and style?
So wow. So we ran the air raid at Burtmore.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Our quarterback, we dabbled in some air raid at Morehouse when I was there as a walk-on freshman. So, but we were air raid at Burtmore. The quarterback my first year was some famous rapper named Quavo from the Migos.
Yes, that's right.
He was our starting quarterback. But we were air raid. When I got to Duluth High School, that's when my offensive vision got refined. The guy I kind of credit for teaching me how to be a head coach, Corey Jarvis, he brought in a guy who had been an offensive coordinator. He named me passing game coordinator. And this guy, his name is Jason Connor. He's not assistant principal. Talk about being an unselfish guy. We end up going to Nashville Glazier Clinic. This is when I think Glazier clinics were good. No offense to Glazier, they're not really the same anymore at all. They're just the biggest dog in the valley, but I don't think they really have that same creativity. Or I think what needs to happen is this. I think Glazier needs to bring more coaches from outside of an area to an area. So if you're going to do the clinic in Atlanta, you need to fly in coaches from Michigan and Ohio and California to speak, because you need to learn diversity in football.
Yeah.
Because generally speaking, when you bring the coach from Georgia or Georgia Tech or Alabama, Auburn, we all run the same stuff because we see that guy all the time. So you're not really learning or stretching. Here nor there. We drove up to Nashville, man. Noel Mazzone, back when he was trying to get the end zone system going, heard the man speak for like at least 6 hours, went to a bar, sat next to him. Man, Noel drew so many things up on napkins and talked. And after that, like I said, the offensive coordinator, he was a spread guy. But I think what we meshed was he was kind of coaching. I had been in Gwinnett County and DeKalb County, which was extreme athletes. So when I talk about extreme athletes, I'm talking about guys like I played high school football against Patrick Pass, guys like Craig Lumpkin, coached against guys. I coached against Alvin Kamara. Like I had to try to game plan how to stop him on offense and defense. So many like I could go into. I had seen what speed and athletes could do. The schools he had been OC at had been very disciplined young men. They weren't just freakish athletes. They did exactly what was on that paper to a T. And so after we kind of heard Noel's vision of combining air raid with run game and what we experienced, I think we locked ourselves in that hotel room that night. And we might have drunk so much coffee because I think we had to pull over and sleep in the car before we came back to Atlanta. But we kind of put together this mastermind of an offense. Because I tell people, I know it had been popular before then, but I got clips on my YouTube of us running stick draw from empty and with the quarterback back from 2012.
Nasty, yeah.
Yeah, like we were doing that kind of stuff in 2012, and the motions to the bubbles and the motions for play action, all that stuff. Like, and so that was kind of my melting pot of putting it together. Those last 2 years at Duluth, and then in 2013, I become my own head coach, and I ran my offense. And even as I grew coordinators, it still has been kind of my base. Now I have grown from where I was in 2013, but that's kind of the launching point when I got to Duluth and sitting down in 6 to 9 hours of Noel Mazzone, and kind of being in that circle of whether it be Noel, Bobby Acosta, Coach Marsh, who was the OC at A&T just recently, just kind of being in that circle with guys, my boy Cody, Cam Condor, just being in that circle again with those type of coaches. Rhett Lashley, just redefining kind of that base, I would say. So that was kind of that. We took 2 offenses. We heard what Noel said about his system, and so much stuff spread out that made sense that we took all this and put it together. But that's kind of that base. And there was stuff that we added, like I said, we were heavy Gus, Power, Reed before everyone was, because that's not really a part of the end zone system. But we knew Power Reed was that play back in 2010. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that kind of thing.
I love it, man. I love it. And that's how evolution happens, right? You have your own thing. You kind of feel like I got something here, and then you meet somebody or find a mentor or just watch a video and it kind of clicks. So that's awesome. And we don't do too much run game here. But I am curious. You said Power Read. What else? Are there a couple other run games that you hang your hat on?
So I don't. You know what's funny? Talk about the evolution of that. I don't really hang my hat on that anymore. My hat is mainly hung on right now, duo and Y zone and counter.
Nice.
Because I have kind of morphed more into 20p, 11p than pure 10 spread P. So at the time, it was when I first was the head coach, it was power read and inside zone. But we have kind of left that in a sense. Still, inside zone duo, we can talk about that at a later date. I know it's not run game, how I bastardized that, but
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And then counter GH has kind of been my money play for the last 4 years. And
Yeah.
then I actually think the growth in me says that wide zone is probably the best run play in football, and that whether you're spread or not, you need to run wide zone. So whether you're 10p, 11p, 12p, 21p, wide
Yeah.
zone.
I mean, that's the one. I think that is one common thread through all levels, right? I mean,
Yes.
as we get below high school, I think it's a little harder to teach, but absolutely, high school, college, pros, wide zone kind of unlocks everything. It seems like, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, and we're big. I preach a lot of GT counter for us, and we don't do too many crazy formations at the lower levels with H backs and stuff. But I mean, if your tackle can't get around, GH counter is just as
Yeah.
good.
So I have been a big GT guy, still love it. I just have, like I said, we've been playing with a lot more the evolution of kind of where I have went passing game wise and run structure and manipulating with RPOs of teams.
Yeah.
Most definitely the H back tight end has become more of a focal point for me. I just think that puts that's a boy. I have this argument with one of my best friends who was defensive coordinator when I was at Duluth. He became a head coach. He's now a defensive coordinator again, and we bounce our deals off each other 24/7. And then my defensive coordinator, who's been with me at Green, and who was also he was a head coach in my region when I was at Newton, so we compete against each other. The evolution of what you feel hurts you the most. So my friend one of my friends that's a DC, he thinks that 10 personnel scares him more than 20p. My other friend is more scared of 12p. And so I mean it's beautiful thing, all of them. But I believe kind of where it's kind of went. I prefer to play with a tight end H back. If you make one, but that's kind of where I'm at.
No, I
If he
love
can do a couple of things, then I think that is the hugest evolution of offensive football, passing game, wide structure, etc.
it. Yeah, for sure. And you see that in football and basketball, right? Like you got these hybrid athletes that can do multiple things. It just puts so much stress on the defense to what are they going to do? They could run, they could pass, they can option, they can do all these things out of this formation that makes me have to choose what defense I got to put on the field.
Right.
And it's funny, the higher level coaches I talk to, like you, they talk more about personnel than they do about my concepts, right? Like if I can get the right personnel and force that defense into a certain way, certain thing, then I still got the athletes, I still got the concepts, they're going to work. It's on me to call the right ones based on the defense. But yeah, I mean, you're tapping into something that these younger level coaches really need to hear, because we are so focused on why corner is the best concept in the game, right? But really, you got to set that up with the right personnel, and I love that you're kind of dropping that. Okay, cool. So let's talk a little quarterbacks, man. So I'm assuming you're quarterback heavy in most of these teams that you're coaching, right? Like you're the one kind of in their ear most of the time.
Yeah. At definitely developing have developed a language with the quarterbacks. I've been a quarterback coach and a wide receiver coach the majority of my career, either or, sometimes both, depending on where I was at. But definitely, I have been responsible for developing the language in which we teach the quarterbacks and how the quarterback is taught at most of the schools I've been at. So definitely been a part of that process.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so, let's just, now that you've gone through multiple high schools as the head coach or offensive coordinator, and you've kind of been through the process with freshmen to all the way through seniors and started that process all over again every year. How much, and maybe it's not you, but you have someone that probably is dedicated to quarterbacks. How much technique, when you guys get them at the varsity level, how much technique are you guys working on with quarterbacks? Are you stressing that a lot, or?
It depends. So you have to know where you are. So for example, in Metro Atlanta, most quarterbacks have a quarterback trainer, right?
Right.
So you're dealing with what that techniques look like. And for the ones that don't, you have to do the best technique things that you understand. So for example, if I'm teaching quarterbacks and they don't have the trainer, I'm the trainer and the coach in a sense. Like I'm a big fan of the back pedal drop back.
Hmm.
Um So that's something that we're going to teach, how to backpedal and pause and drop, how to catch and turn a lot, especially going to your right. If you're a right-handed quarterback, how to turn that left foot real quick and get the ball out, things of that nature. For my kids that come already kind of taught with technique, it's just a refinement of making sure whatever I can see that trainer has worked with you on matters. And I think the biggest thing that needs work from a high school coaching quarterback perspective in either case, the focus is kind of shifted, man, so much to off-platform throws, which matters in high school, off-platform throws. But really what matters is the ability to evade and then throw. That's more something you see at the high school level, which I would assume was probably a lot of what you would see at the middle school level. It isn't that, yeah, you got to be able to throw off one foot. That's not it to me. Lines aren't necessarily what they are with these manimals they putting on defensive line. So it's more so of how can you evade? Once you evade, how do you reset and get rid of the ball? So from the mechanics level, that's more of what we do. From the what I think happens a lot of time when you got kids who are trained up, it's really the mental aspect of understanding the reads and how those are taught and how you visualize it, because timing in the quarterback's head is everything.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted. Two points to what you just said. The back pedal is interesting to me because I'm like you. If they already have an idea what they want to do, I'm not going to try to change it. But I've found the back pedal, it's a little harder to time up with the concepts. Personally, that's been my experience with it. Have you guys had any? Do you have any tips or tricks for timing that up, or has it not been an issue for you?
Well, it hadn't been an issue for me. But I think, you're talking about from the gun too. So I think the 3-step, I think with the back pedal allows your quarterback to do is quickly turn his body and set his feet.
Yeah.
I think that number one thing, I will say this, I think one of the hardest things for quarterbacks to do is to quickly turn to the right, especially right-handed quarterbacks. The one step, like the pop variation.
Yeah.
I like the back pedal again because I think it times up the stop well, especially in either direction, depending on what your read is. But I think you're looking at a 3-step kind of progression from that. Whereas I think if you have a lot of, whether it's quick screens, whether it's a quick hitch, I think working with the quarterback on being able to turn and throw the ball to the right is something that one step is something that has to be worked on. That's more of what I call a pop step. And so we work that a lot at that concept a lot. So what I'll do is I'll take me, myself, or the other quarterback, and I put him 10 yards away to the right. And the first time his quarterback got it one step, throw. Then I bring him up 5 yards, one step and throw. Then I put him on the same level to indicate bubble, one step, turn and throw. I think that is a very hard throw for right-handed quarterbacks. I had a lefty, but whole another set of dynamics. There's also, why I tell people I think right-handed quarterbacks sprint out to the left better than they do to the right. Because I think when you sprint out to the left, you have to turn your body to get your mechanics right. Whereas opposed to you sprint to the right, there's a lot of overthrows because you're coming downhill with your dominant leg and platform. So that has to be worked out. So, I feel, a lot of those issues. But yeah, I'm a fan of the back pedal drop back.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And we do a lot of bubble. We combine GT with bubble and kind of just an easy number count pre-snap.
Yeah.
Which one you do it. And it's like I always use the analogy, and probably maybe you do too, with turning a double play from second base, just get the ball out, right? Just flip those hits and go. So yeah. And then the second thing you mentioned there was, and it's such a good point, of when a rush is coming, evading it, but then thinking about throwing again and not just taking off and being an athlete. Like, you see a lot of great athletes that they kind of just rely on that. And as a Niner fan, Kaepernick I went to the same college. We played at the same college, all that good stuff. But, as soon as he had to kind of learn how to read a defense, it got kind of sticky. But guys like Lamar, the evolution of that, and as much as I hate to say it, Russell Wilson, they're so good at that, of evading the rush, but then still looking downfield and throwing.
And that's big because a lot of quarterbacks, especially high school level, when they evade the rushes, oh, there he goes. What happens to my eyes?
Right.
I can't see. So a lot of drills we work is you evading, feeling, but still looking so you can throw. What is commonplace for high school quarterbacks, definitely probably middle school quarterbacks, is here comes the rush. I need to evade, and my eyes go here. Once your eyes go here, looking there and quickly scanning is a problem. And I think that's more probably of an issue in high school ball and middle school ball, and even at the college level than anything.
Right. Just being calm, right? Like if you can create ways in practice, and we do try to have this people, like an inside run period, but we call it inside pass, where they have to kind of sit in the pocket and move around. But just finding ways where they can just be comfortable in that pressure, right? Not just freak out. I'm going to go be an athlete and go. It's tough, but I'm sure there's ways you can teach that just to keep them calm, if nothing else, at these younger levels, especially. You talked a little bit about progressions, and that's where I wanted to go next. I mean, it sounds like you guys do some RPOs, but let's talk about like a real either a quick game or drop back where they're having to go through progressions. What's the most effective way you've learned how to kind of teach quarterbacks to read progressions? Is it on the field, on the whiteboard? Like what kind of things do you do to teach that?
Well, I mean, multiple levels is always good. I think you got to do a bit of both. And I think how you drill it on the field is important. So I will say now, kind of the progression of where I was, going back to the loop, we were kind of R4-ish before it was R4. So like we learned this from, at the time, Josh Niblett, who's not the head coach of Gainesville, from Hoover fame, big head coach that worked on the rush pros. He would call it give, action, reaction, and move. Oh. So you have a gift route, which times up to your last step, which is usually your deep balls. You have your action, which is your primary read. And if that's covered, then you got to react. And if not, then you got to move, which means to get the hell out of Dodge, right? But we have kind of, even with that, we still use that, but we have kind of went to more the way the game has maneuvered to quickly teach high school students with the RPOs, etc., that are coming in to be effective in the passing game, especially that medium range passing game up. Then we have moved to full field progression reads. And I think that is the pretty much the best thing you can do for your quarterback from drop back passing on. That's not quick game, is pure progression. Passing reads, being able to say bam, 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 and let him read it top down. Like one of the plays has been money for us over the last 5 years has been the flood concept. And it is as simple as you say. 1 has a post, 2 has the circus corner, 3 has a hitch or flat, depending on where he's coming from, 4 has that backside dig. And obviously the quarterback can move as need be, but you take a play like that, which is a pure progression, and you're teaching him the pure progression. Now you can, in a perfect world, we probably run 7, 8 different variations of flood a year. Wow. Just when I say formations and moving and tag. So that's like been a money Star Wars play. And I got a video for like 15 minutes talking about how to install flood on my channel. Right now, a go-to route that's been for us, and I'm probably going to do a video at that sometime before season starts, which is taking the air raid play with shallow dig and kind of morphing it into what West Coast coaches have did with the shallow sit. Instead of running that guy on the dig, running him right now at that 12-yard sit route over the middle with the shallow. And we tag the bejesus out of that. That is our number one play. So we'll line up, for example, we'll line up in twins to the left, tight end receiver to the right. And we'll motion that slot. And on this side, we'll run smash. And off of that, we take this receiver, he'll run the shallow, and the H will run the sit. So now we got a full progression. Smash, shallow to sit. Wow. And it's been money. We'll take that same concept, look with those same guys, and bring that receiver in motion. Same people have the shallow sit. He has a fade ball from the slot if it's man coverage, and this guy has a swirl route, which is a corner curl. Same progression. We're going 1, 2, 3. It's money. We'll run it from the red zone, much like the Chiefs do. They get in 3 by 1. Well, guess what? You're gonna hit again. Shallow and sit with a post wheel. Post wheel, shallow sit. Full progression read. I think that's where the money is. But we teach that in all three levels. We teach it classroom. If you've got film. I think what we're doing now, coaches, get on Zoom or a screen recording software and record yourself. Add it to YouTube. Make it unlisted or private. Share it with your players. Share it with your coaches. Those that install video. So now they have you got board work, you got video, you got on the field. And then when you talk about drilling it on the field, one thing that we do, for example, let's go back to Y cross. So we tag Y cross pretty much all the time with me. Y cross is a tag play. One of my favorite tags, which is quick game and pure progression,
Exactly.
is running spacing with Y cross attached to it. So now I got an 8-yard mini curl, a flat, the Y cross, and the post. So now I got my quick game. I'm gonna take spacing. If I have to keep going, now I got my Y cross. So what we'll do, for example, is we'll take two coaches. One coach will either take the shallow, take the spacing, or the flat, and the other guy has the spacing out of Y cross. And we get our quarterbacks to drop back. He has to make that read with the receivers, and we get the next group, and we do the same thing. And it's making the quarterback find that window and understand, okay, bam, bam, bam. And you get to kind of see his eyes and see his thinking. And I think that mental clock helps quarterbacks time up with their drop. So I think it's got to be all those levels when we come out teaching the quarterback how to understand progression.
No, I love it. I just literally released a video this morning about putting coaches on the field, especially in camp, in those real specific read situations. Because as a coach, we know, okay, early in camp, let's not try to fool them too much. But then as we start to progress, now I can start playing with the quarterback, but actually seeing his eyes. And I love that. And yeah, we do a lot of quick game on our channel, but the two dropbacks, shallow is if you can do it. Shallow cross is amazing, obviously, and we do it the same. For 6 years, we haven't let the dig go across the field. We just get them behind that outside linebacker and sit in between that space, and then that shallow is going in front.
Yep.
So that adds up just perfectly with our group. And then wide cross, man, you said it. Combination of quick game to start, and then the drop back game coming across. That's a tougher one for lower levels, but that is an amazing, flood type of play. So we're with you on that, Coach. And anytime you have those videos, let me know. I'll push it out to these guys because they would love to consume that for sure. Okay, cool. Next question would be, so, quantifying if they are understanding, now you got into the season, maybe you've got a game or two under your belt, or shoot, maybe it's even better question is in camp, because sometimes you get camp going so quickly and you feel like they're getting it, but then when the bullets start flying in the games, you're like, wait, maybe he's not understanding. Like, how are you making sure in camp that they are actually understanding it?
So I think the main thing where coaches go wrong, and this goes back to even with what Doug Maddox used to talk about, how you question and how the language of understanding is with your quarterback. So if my quarterback calls, let's just talk about flood again, right? Hey, and he throws an interception on the circus route. When he comes to the sideline, one of the things that I ask the quarterback is, I'll say, hey, on what step and what eyes? And so what I expect him to see is, Coach, when I hit my third step, I expect him to say, so if he's throwing the circus route, it better be off a hitch. He took a 3-step drop. The post wasn't there. He hitched up and started circus route. I want him to be able to tell me my hitch step and my eyes saw flat rotation. Quick answer. That confirms two things. If he says he doesn't know and he didn't see, then that means we have a breakdown in the teaching. And then we have to check, of course, check protection. If he says it was a blitz, then we go back to what we call the blitz rules, which goes back to old R4 terminology. For us is if you get a blitz, it's gift or reaction. Ain't no action. If you see some type of pressure, for example, we're calling flood, then either you're going to throw the post or you're going to throw the flat route or you getting the hell out of dodge. And so that answers, hey, blitz. And so then once he says blitz, okay, so why would you throw a circus route? That helps us. If he says blitz, coach, and it was man. And a lot of times the quarterback answers itself. It was a blitzing man. That meant I should have been holding on for 1 to 2 home run balls. And either we catch it out of the ground, catch it. But if I threw the circus route, that means I threw a route that I know needs me to take a 3-step drop and a hitch with blitz protection. That's my bad. I need either a route that I can throw off my normal rhythm or a route where I can abort my drop back and throw. And so just teaching your guys that common language is a big thing.
No, I love that. I love that. And even making sure your coaches are speaking that same language too. I'm sure at your place, you probably got a good group of coaches that come back a lot, but at the lower levels, you kind of get given coaches from year to year, right? And you have to like teach them as much.
And I think you can't skip that part of the process. Like, I give you a perfect example. And it was a great question. One of the coaches on Twitter, Coach Gardner, he's a defense guy. He's asking some questions, which is what the offseason is for, trying to refine stuff. He asked the question, for example, that says box, spill, or dent. My reply was, we teach our edge players to chase the center's ass. That's our terminology. So then, if you're asking me, do we box, spill, or dent? If I'm telling you that we tell our edge rusher, whether that's a blitz, whether that's the end, who's in the 5 technique, to chase the center's ass, you visualize what we're doing. Hey, coach, you guys are spilling and denting. Right. But you visually understand what my linemen should be doing. We use that words for all of our guys, whether that's a safety blitzing, whether that's an outside linebacker blitzing, whether that's a defensive end. Every coach on my staff says it. Every coach, when they do a crash drill, teaches it. So it is that common terminology. When somebody says, no, I'm talking to you or another coach, I might say, hey, we spill and dent. But the reason why I said that was the commonality in language. We gonna chase the center's butt, baby. That's what we gonna do. That's what we tell our kids. So our kids understand, hey, not only am I looking to come down the line, I'm chasing his butt. But if I'm chasing his butt, I'm inside a guard. So if you would have run GT against us, which I love GT, we should be inside of your guard coming. Now, it's imperative for us as coaches, because I'm an offensive guy, right? We should log that guy, and the tackle should just keep going around. That means that we've got to be doing our job of coaching, right? So, that commonality of language for your whole program is important.
Yeah, got to paint that picture and make sure everyone's talking the same. All right, cool. So one more quarterback specific question. So, a lot of coaches, this is very debatable on all these social platforms, like pre-snap keys when a quarterback comes up to the line of scrimmage, and let's just call it, again, quick game or drop back game. Let's leave RPOs out of this and running out of this. Like, do you have specific pre-snap keys that you hang your hat on? Obviously, like middle of field opener, close, how many safeties, quarterback depth. Like, what do you want your quarterbacks? Do you want them thinking about that kind of stuff at all?
Yeah, two things. The umpire sits at 7 yards over the center. That is the hard deck.
Yep.
Every team I've been on, this year could be different. New school, I don't know if I have a guy yet, but I tell my quarterbacks often, and this is where I kind of venture off from a lot of coaches, because a lot of coaches want the completion percentage. I want the scoreboard to change. Hey man, you come with it below that hard deck 5 yards on us, and I got a guy. It better be a lot of bail technique, because we're gonna test you out. But to observe the hard deck tells you all answers, whether especially the corners alignment. And then to the apex defender. What's the apex defender doing pre-snap? So understanding for your outside receiver or for your gift ball. For your gift, I'm looking at hard deck, trying to get an understanding of the corner's technique. Most corners are going to stand it. Think about this, right? And even probably at your level, coach, if you play a team that's quarters are cover 3, most corners, when you see them on field during the game, stand at 7 yards, right?
Yeah.
6 to 8 yards is that no man's land. That's where DB wants to be a lot of times, depending on coverage, because you don't know what they're in. Now, I'm a quarters bail person on my team, but you kind of know what that means when you see one of those teams. That being said, you want to discourage the quarterback from having an initial thought. And then RPOs or even drop backs. Where's the apex defender? especially towards your primary read. The apex defender initially tells you kind of what's happening. He's the confirmation. If the apex defender is blitzing, that confirms a lot of things for you. If he's up picking across the line of scrimmage, if he dropped back initially on staff, that confirms a lot of things. I'm not one of those coaches who tell my quarterbacks you need to look off people. They'll now look at people.
Yeah.
Confirm what you see.
Right. And just for these lower level coaches, if he's blitzing, it's a good chance we're in man. They're in man. And if they drop it back, it's zone. I mean, just a general idea, right? Just to make sure. Yeah. All right, Coach. So the next question, as we wrap things up, feel free to not get too personal if you don't want to, but times have changed, right? Like when we grew up in the 90s, it was like, hey, you do your job, player. We don't need to hear your response. We don't care how this makes you feel. So, we got to be a little bit more vulnerable these days and maybe share a little bit more about ourselves with these kids to kind of have them see us as maybe more human than back in the day, right? So I often ask coaches, like, a big challenge in their life, sports related or not, that they had to kind of overcome and how they did it. So I don't know if you have any stories that you'd be willing to share about, something that was a challenge in your life that you kind of overcame, and so we can model for these kids how to kind of be open a little bit.
Well, I tell my players, Coach, being transformational is something that's needed. I love my father. He was a great dad to me. My dad was an old school retired technical sergeant in the Air Force. So it was, as the kids say, BTA, baby. And that was my booty he was spanking with the belt. But so we have to be a lot more, transformational in the sense. Love my pops. He wasn't open, but we talk about with our kids. So when I meet with my kids and I do relationship lunches in the summer every Wednesday with my kids after practice in the mornings, and even as a high school, middle school coach, find a smaller example, but something that resonates with my kids at the high school level, talking about adversity, is I give them this story, Coach. One story right quick. It's real simple as this. Before I became the head coach at Newton High School, I interviewed 8 times and was told no.
Wow.
2 of the schools that told me no, Coach, if I put those 2 schools' records together for the previous 5 years before I was hired, they probably were like 496.
Damn. Wow.
2 schools who had a combined record of 496 for the previous 5 years interviewed me and decided not to hire me. You could have gave up after that, Coach. You like, hey man, a school that hadn't won a game in 3 years don't want me. Like, what? I can't get that job. And I got to Newton. They were coming off going 5-5, and finally making the playoffs for the first time. Got blew out. Before that, they hadn't had a winning season in 6 years. They were kind of rebuilding the program. I got there at the right time. It was a middle of the road job. They took a chance on a coordinator instead of somebody with experience. And 2 years later, we were in the quarterfinals. The year after that, we won the region championship and won 10 games. So imagine if I had got discouraged. I wouldn't be here talking to you right now, Coach. And so that's, when I talk to my kids about adversity and facing it, it is I could have given up. Even to the point where I'm at now at Central Gwinnett High School, and that's a whole nother conversation, Coach. But I wanted to get to be a head coach in Gwinnett County a lot of times in my career. Newton, I had extreme athletes. I was blessed. Didn't know what I didn't know. So when I was at Newton, I was naive. I coached the best athletes for a high school team over those 6 years ever. I love those kids, but I was always picking at Gwinnett because they had the toys that we didn't have at Newton, and we had to play those schools. I ended up being an interim head coach in Gwinnett, and I left to go to Greene County, which was going from top level classification instead of Georgia to the lowest classification. So if Central Gwinnett, for example, Coach, has 2,500 kids in the building, Greene County has 432 kids in the high school building.
Jeez.
Yeah, talk about a difference.
Wow.
And then I've come back now in Central. So I knowing what I know now, I would have been happy at Newton. and probably, but life teaches you things, but the adversity, and that you can always find your way. Just adversity. I try to teach my kids adversity, because that's the one thing that these teenagers and young group we have a problem with, is they don't want to go through the suck.
Yeah.
And we got to get them to go through the suck. And I get it's times to do other things, but it's time also to go through the suck. It's I like, for example, I'm a proponent of the transfer portal, but I also understand that you use the transfer portal when it's to your benefit, not because you're not getting your way.
Yeah.
That eventually, no matter where you go, you got to go through the suck. And I think that's an important thing at the college level, high school level, and for middle school. We're trying to teach kids to be transformational. And I kind of tell my coaches that, like, we're going to be real good at Central next year. We're going to be competitive. We believe we can make the playoffs. But I know, looking at paper, there are about 6 to 8 schools right now that's got about 8 to 12 D1 FBS athletes on them in 6A. Those are probably going to be the teams that win state. We got to build our home. And so you better find joy in getting kids transformational relationships and letting them handle adversity till we can get to that level where the other schools at, and we can look them in the eye before the season and say, we'll be in the thick of things with you. We're aiming to be in the state championship game. We're aiming to win region. But I also know the team that I have 2 teams in my region that have won a state championship in the last 5 years. And one of them got at least 12 Division I athletes. And the other one, the star player 2 years ago, was some kid named Caleb Downs.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean,
it happens. Yeah. No, I love it, Coach. I appreciate you sharing that story. And that is, I mean, if there's no other reason to let your kids play football and, put them at risk with a physical sport, maybe the last true physical sport, is to learn that life lesson, how to get knocked down and get back up. And, that's a little cliche, but I mean, especially, and I don't want to sound like an old fogey, but especially in today where we don't really have the support of parents as much as we used to. They used to just default to the teacher's side and the coach's side. Like, these people aren't out to get you. There's a reason why they're holding you accountable. Now it's kind of like, oh, you're making my kid feel a little uncomfortable, so like it must be your fault, right? And so if you can find ways to instill that grit in them, man, for my 5 kids and then all the kids I coach, that's the main thing, right? Like, there's very likely they're not going to play professional sports, or maybe even after high school. But if we can get that into them, that's the whole reason we are in this game. Obviously we love competing and we love drawing stuff up and succeeding in our own right. But that is the underlying whole point. So I appreciate that very specific story. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. So let's just make sure, I'm going to put all those things I mentioned, the book and everything, in the show notes so everyone can find it. Anything you want to make sure that you talk about or push people to right now to find you? Or
well, I would say, if you're on Twitter, T Banks 1906 is my Twitter name. I know you got I'm one of the administrators for No Huddle Spread Tempo Facebook group. We talk some ball on there.
Yeah.
I'm always on Twitter. I would say this, depending upon where you are in your coaching journey, all of my Coach 2 videos has something for everything. If you're a middle school coach, and I know you have a ton of middle school coaches on here, or small ball coaches, I encourage you to go buy my practice video, because my practice video shows you how to coach all sides of all offensive practice with limited coaches, because that's the issue at the middle school level.
Huge. Yeah, huge.
Limited coaches, how to get stuff done with limited coaches. And if you are an air raid guy, the book 101 Plays in the Power Spread Offense, that if you want variations, that's the book for you. And that book isn't I'm working on a book that teaches you how to install the offense, but we got videos from guys like you and other guys that teach you how to install offense. So what my specific niche is, I think when I wrote that book, it was just the variations. It's about 8 variations of quick game and stick and shallow and flood and wide cross. And so even at the middle school level, something that you may use a few times, but those variation plays are in there. And so the 101 Plays in the Power Spread, which is on Amazon. And then, like I say, I know you have a lot of middle school coaches. All my Coach 2 videos are great. I got one on stick. I got one on passing game, RPOs. But if you got kind of those plays, the structure of practice is what makes these plays go.
100%. And something I wanted to bring up earlier, and it sounds like you're going to get into it on that book, is making as many concepts as you can have with the quarterback has the same reads. I mean, that is such a huge piece of this. We preach that a lot. We choose the concepts we talk about because of that. And you were hitting on that earlier. And it sounds like that's a part of your book with these variations. So yes, I'll put all that in the show notes, Coach, so people can find those things. But again, thank you so much. You know, maybe we can do a baseball one of these sometime. I love watching 90s ball, baseball. Not all of us around that still like that stuff. So appreciate you coming on, Coach. And yeah, man, we'll see you around the social side too, for sure.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for having me.
Yes, sir.
All right.